Hello team. Today I'll be talking to you guys about PUMS data and have a little demonstration about how to get the data off the PUMS website as well as bring it into SPSS and making the changes in performing the analysis. This is one of the more difficult sections that you'll have to deal with in this course, and it's not easy data to work with, but it's very useful, as you will see. So first off, we have to go to the PUMS website, as you can see up here, PUMS.org, USA. And once you're here, if this is your first time, you're going to have to create a login. So if you were not already logged in, you would say log in. So I guess I just logged out, but now I'm going to log back in. And you'd have to say create an account and put your name, email address, and so forth, because when you submit your request, they're going to send you an email when the data is ready. So that's kind of how this site works. So I will sign in, and then I'm going to go to select data, because that's what I want to do. I want to find some data that I want to use and analyze. So the data is organized by group, by household, by person, or you can search it alphabetically. So the first thing to do is go to household, because you want to pick out a geographic area or geographic scale to work with. So I click on geographic, and I have all these variables here to look at. I think that the thing to pay attention to when you're doing this is to look at the variable and then look across to see what years it might be available. So you can see at the top all the years, what data product it is, ACS, 5% sample from the decennial censuses, and so forth. The X's mark whether it's available for that year. Another thing you can do is look at codes. So if I'm not sure what rural urban status is here, I can click on codes, and it's going to tell me that once I download this variable, there's going to be 0, 1s, and 2s. The 1s are going to represent rural areas, the 2s are going to represent urban areas. So that's kind of how the variables are formatted. They're based on numeric code. So it's always kind of good to know what you're getting before you get it. So in this case, I just want to look at state level PUMS. So I'm going to click on state FIPS. That's the one I'm most familiar with. And then I could look at any other kind of household variables. In this case, maybe I want to look at household income, kind of compare population groups by income. So I click on economic characteristics and scroll through what's here. Farm status, mortgage status, contract rent. That might be an interesting one, but I'm just looking for total household income. I notice that it is available for the years I want. So I'm going to select income. Next, I want to select some personal kind of data variables. And like I said before, the very useful thing about the PUMS data is it can really compare population groups very effectively. So that's when you would want to pick either ancestry groups, race groups, like groups by place of birth. So I'm going to do that with the race, ethnicity, and nativity here. And you can see I can click different, I can select race groups, Hispanic origin, nativity, things like that. In this case, I want to compare groups whether they're native born or foreign born. So I'm going to pick place of birth. Again, I can look at the codes to see what it all means, but I know from previous uses that it's got all the different countries where people were born, and so I can work with that in SPSS to narrow down native born versus foreign born. So I'm going to click place of birth, and I'm also interested in when they came to this country. So I'm going to click year of immigration. And that's all I really want from this section, and maybe I want a couple other variables. So I'm going to click demographic. I want to see the age of the people, these foreign-born people. Maybe I want to look at their education levels. So again, here's an education variable grouping. And I want to look at educational attainment. What level of education have these people reached? After I've selected what I want, in this case I scroll over here, and at the top it kind of gives me a little review. I have 6 variables that I've selected. Next I want to select samples. The samples are are what year the data is from, if it's ACS, decennial census. So I want to select samples, so I'm going to click this select samples button here. And by default, pretty much all samples are selected, and we don't want all the samples, it's too much information. We just want to look at maybe a year or two to compare them. In this case, I think I just want to look at the most recent ACS. The 1 year I'm going to select because New York State is the state I want to look at, and maybe compare that with another state, but it's a large enough sample where the 1 year ACS is going to be sufficient. If I was looking at a county level or something like that, you might want to look at the 5 year because it's a larger sample size at that point and might be a little better to use. So I'm going to submit my sample selection, and I have what I want. So if I have the sample I want, the variables I want, I can say View Cart. It'll give me a little review of what I'm going to download. And what the PUMS does is it gives you some other variables by default that you might find useful. Lots of times they're not, but they still give them to you anyways, like data set number, the household serial number, household weight, and so on. So I'm just going to leave those for now and click Create Data Extract. Okay, this is just before it's going to submit it. So it says, all right, I got one sample, we know that, 15 variables, got my 6 variables plus all those extras they throw in by default. The format's important. I want to use SPSS. They also allow you to use the data and analyze it with Stata or SAS. Those are other types of statistical packages. And you can download it also as a CSV, which really would not be very useful because we have to do a bunch of things, as you'll see, within SPSS. So rectangular, that's kind of like the spreadsheet format that we're all used to. I'm going to click Submit there. So everything seems to be okay. But the one thing I do want to do under Options is to select cases, because if I don't, it's going to give me everybody, all the PUMS data for the whole country, and it's going to be a data file that's kind of really way too large. 215 megabytes is pretty large, so we're going to want to narrow it down. So I pick Select Cases, and I'm going to select cases from state. I want to just look at a certain state. So I want to compare New York State with Florida, for example. So I use the Shift key here. So I got Florida and New York. I'm going to submit that. And my data set's going to be a little more manageable at this point. The other options you don't have to really mess with. They're more advanced. So at this point, all you have to do is just kind of put in a little description. It can be anything, but they kind of make you put a description so you can kind of monitor, and they can monitor what you've been downloading. So New York, Florida, foreign-born population. My spelling is wonderful. And say Submit. And it says it's been submitted. You'll be notified when it's ready. Since it takes about 5 or 10 minutes to wait, I went ahead and did this beforehand anyways. So as you can see here, this is the one I did a little while ago. I actually did it just for New York instead of New York and Florida, but I picked the same variables. So here's just some command files, which you don't really care about. That takes kind of computer programming type things. So we made it easier over the years. So now we can just simply click on SPSS, and it gives us the format that we can work with. So I click SPSS. I'm going to save it on my hard drive, on my desktop. It's downloading. And here it is on my desktop. What you have to do is unzip it. You guys should be familiar with unzipping things at this point. So I'm going to extract this here. You can use WinZip to do it as well. Extract here. So extract. And it comes with SPSS.sav. That's a project file for SPSS. So I'm going to delete my zip file, and you can simply double click on this. In the computer lab you should have access to SPSS, and I'll tell you guys how to access it and download it for your laptop if you wish. So I'm going to double click on the SPSS file, and it should open it up. Let me just format the window size for this video here. And what you see is a spreadsheet format like you would for Excel or anything else. You have columns. It tells me what year the data is, 2014, right? It's the 1 year estimate. Data number, serial number, household weight. Those are all kind of technical variables that we really don't have to deal with. So you can leave them there, but usually I like to delete them. So I'll simply right-click and click Clear, right-click Clear, right-click Clear. Household weight could be important in some instances. In this case, it's not. We're going to be using person weight, which I'll explain in a minute. So I'm going to clear household weight. Group quarters is whether it's a single-family house or an apartment complex. It may be useful for you. In my case here, it's not. I'm going to get rid of that. Person number, it's what person in the household that this survey is. So it's head of the household, maybe the wife, the son, so whatever. I'm going to get rid of that. I want all people, so I don't care. And I'm kind of left with some of the things I've gotten. One thing I didn't mention is that there's a general version and a detailed version of certain variables, and usually they both come along with it when you submit the extract. The detailed version has pretty much every possible detail about that variable, and lots of times it's kind of too much, and it's not necessary. So you can view these if you look in the variable view, which I'll show you in a minute. But I'm going to clear these because I really don't need the detailed versions. I just want the general version. So right now I've narrowed down to what I really want to work with. So this is my data view. Kind of looks like a spreadsheet. Now the variable view is also important to look at. So if you look at the variable view, it gives me information about it, like what type of data the information is, the label, the values. So the values are kind of like what is in that all the codes are about, right? So birthplace, age. If I look at education, I'm going to look at the different values, and it'll tell me. If something is coded as a 1, it's people that have just a nursery school through grade 4 education. A 10 is 4 years of college. 11 is 5 years plus. So this is what the codes mean. And we're going to want to simplify these by recoding these a little later. So my data is ready to go pretty much. I'm going to go back to my data view. And this is when actually we do have to start recoding, because 99999, if you go back to here, go to household income, there's no data values for that, but if you go to back to the PUMS website, I can go to revise, and I can look at my variables, show my variables, and then if I go down to income, I can click on it, look at the codes, and it'll tell me that anything that's a 999 is not available. So we don't want to have that in our calculations, right? So coming back to SPSS, back to the data view, we don't want these to be part of calculation. If we're trying to calculate average household income, this is going to skew the average if it has 9,999,000 when it's not really an actual income. So this is where we can recode. So under the transform button, there's recode into same and recode into different. If it's a simple recode, I like to just do recode into same variables. And what that does is just kind of overwrite what's already there. Now you can make a mistake by doing that and you can't recover it. So if you're really not too confident, do recode into different variables. And that's what I'll do just to show you now. So recode into different variable. I'm going to recode my total household income. I'm going to call this one new inc for new income. Click the change button and click old and new. Sorry, this was out of view of the thing. I moved household income into this box. I'm changing the name, because the new name of the new column is going to be new income. I click change, and then click old and new values. So anything that's going to be that 999 thing, I'm going to take out of the calculation. So everything that's 9999999, whatever it is, I'm going to have a system missing. And what system missing does is it makes it not available for calculations. So click add, continue, OK. And now if I look at my new variable, I didn't do it right. Well, let's clear that. Go back again, recode into different. Old and new. The 999s were system missing. Actually, let's not do it this way. Let's do recode as the same, because I kind of forgot how to get the other values back in there. So I'm going to transform into the same, and this time I'm going to do it with the income, old and new values, 999s as system missing. Continue, okay. And this time you can see that it's going to keep my original values and get rid of the 999s. That's what I wanted to do. So I guess only do the recode into different variables, or into a different variable if you want to recode everything, which I'll show you in a minute. Like with age, we're going to recode everything into different categories. So year of immigration, a 0. I wanted to take that out of the calculation, so I can do that for year of immigration. So for year of immigration, I'm going to go data, transform into same variables, get rid of the income, add immigration, old and new values, get rid of the old 999, and say anything that's going to be a 0 is a system missing. Okay. And now I can see that it takes out anything with a 0, because we know that 0 is not something we want, because if we go to the extract variable details, I can click on year of immigration, codes, and it says zeros are not available, so we don't want to have that in our calculation. Okay, next we want to recode age, right? Because we don't care about every age group. We want to just focus on a certain grouping of age for our output. So this is when I would do transform into different variable. Put age in, call it new age, old versus new. So I want to basically put people's age into 5 categories. I want, you know, people 0 to 18, 19 to 30, something like that. So in this case, you want to use the range, right? Any values that are 0 to 18, I'm going to recode these to have a value of a 1. Anybody that's 19 to 30, I want to recode those to have a value of a 2. 31 through 44 have a value of a 3. 45 to 64, value of a 4. And everything else, which means 65 plus, you could do that if you wanted to. You could say 65 through the highest, or all others is going to be a 5. So continue, okay. And this time you can look at our new variable, and here's our new new codes for the age. Now once you recode something, you want to be able to know what that means, what the codes mean. If you look at the variable view, like I showed you before, if I looked at the values for age, the first age, it was pretty self-explanatory. If you wrote down if someone said 7, that means you're 7 years old. 7 years of age, 8, 8, that kind of thing. But for our new variable, we have no values. So you want to kind of code those so we know what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is. So after you recode, you're going to want to put this in. So you put 1, if you remember, it was 0 to 18. 2, we did 19 to 30. 3 was a 31 to 44. 4 was 45 to 64. And the value of 5 was a 65 plus. And now that's, on our outputs, it's going to be something that's meaningful. Now, to kind of check what your output is going to be, under the Analyze button, Descriptive Statistics, Frequencies. This is kind of gives you a summary of what your columns are. So if I look at age, the first age one, before I recoded, I can say OK, and it's going to give me this output. Right? It says there's 196,000 records for New York State, and it says there's 1,900 people that are 1 year old, 1,800 people that are 2 years old, all the way down, right? If I do this, you don't have to save the outputs. If I do that same thing, analyze descriptive statistics, frequencies for my new age variable, since I added the values, now it's something I can work with more easily. It takes my code that I updated, so 0 to 18, there's that many people. So you can kind of see in the percentage, most of the people are between 45 and 64 years old. Now another thing we're going to do is apply weights to this. I don't know what I just did there. We're going to apply weights to this. Now that's the person weight. Now because this is a small sample, the ACS 1 year is like a 1% sample, ACS 5 years a 5% sample, and the weights kind of, see here, multiply what each of these responses, maybe what it would be at the state level. So they're saying, based on this person's response, that they're 29 years old, they're born in a certain place, we're going to say that there's probably another 632 people that could possibly meet that profile. So if you apply the weight, it's going to calculate that percentage for you, so it'll represent kind of a real world numbers instead of just a 1% sample. So to do that, you go to Data, Weight Cases at the bottom, and say I want to weight cases by person weight. Say OK. Then if you see at the very bottom here, it says weight on, so you know it's accurate. So really these numbers here with the frequencies, that's just representing like a 1% sample or whatever. So if I'm going to run that again, analyze frequencies, new age, run it again, the numbers are going to be quite a bit larger and more accurately represent the population of New York. So there's about 4 million people in New York that are between 0 to 18 instead of only about 42,000. So it gives them more representative numbers. So that's important to do. Got to turn the weight on. If I didn't mention this before, I definitely mentioned it in lecture, that each one of these records across are an individual person survey. So that's why it's so valuable. It's saying somebody who's 19 years old, it says what their education level is, whereas with the normal census, the decennial census, ACS, and so on, that would be actually summarized to the block, tract level, county level, where this is the individual record. So you'll see what kind of report we can do in just a second. But before we do that, we have to recode a couple more. We want to recode year of immigration, education, and birthplace. Because for birthplace, we're looking to get just native born and foreign born. So looking at birthplace values, anything that's a 1 is Alaska, so on down, different countries here. So I would just look to see, okay, native born, meaning born in the U.S., is basically 1 to 20 is native born. Anything else, 150 plus, is going to be foreign born. And the 999s, I want to make system missing. So I'm going to go in and going to do my transform into different variables. Birthplace, call it new birthplace. And change my old versus new values. Now this is hello from age, so we want to remove this and start fresh here. So my values of 999 are going to be system missing. Anything from 1 to 120 is going to be a value of 1 I'm going to give it, and then we'll change the value, or change the label, I should say. And then anything else, all their values are going to give a 2, and that's going to represent foreign born. So based on the codes, 1 through 20 was native born, everything else was foreign born. Continue, okay. And I got my new column called new birthplace. You can see in the data view at the end, new birthplace. Got a bunch of 1s and 2s. Now, if I did frequencies before I changed the values, watch what would happen. New birthplace, run a frequency, and look what it says. Just 1s and 2s, that's how many people are 1s and 2s, which we know 1 is supposed to be native born, 2 is supposed to be foreign born, but we want a more descriptive label so we don't get confused. So that's when we're going to do our variable view, values, and change it. Value of a 1 is going to be native born. Value of a 2 is going to be foreign born. And the next time I run it, instead of 1 and 2, it's going to say native born and foreign born, or NB and FB. All right, let's just do the last two here. We want to recode education. Maybe I want just less than high school education, some college, that kind of thing. So I guess anything 0 to 5 is going to be less than high school. 6 is going to be high school. And I'll just do college after that. 7 plus is going to be some college. So recode into different variables. Education. Get rid of the old stuff. Anything 0 to 5, I'm going to give a 1. Anything that was a 6, I'm going to give a 2. Everything else, I'm going to give a 3. And that's from the codes that I just looked at. You can look at the codes in SPSS or the codes within the software. So continue. Sorry, continue. I forgot to give it a new title, new education. Now I can say OK. I want to go and put my labels in here. Anything that's a 1 is less than high school. Anything that's a 2 was high school, grad. Anything that's a 3 is some college. Okay, and then finally, another one, year of immigration. For year of immigration, I'm going to want to kind of group them, right? It's every year, you know, could be 1950, 1930. So I'm just kind of group it by decade, well, maybe by, you know, something like that. So transform into different variables, year of immigration, new im, old the new values. So I'll go the lowest values through 1950. So it's going to be pre-1950. That's going to be a 1. Then maybe I'll do anything 1951 through 1970 is a 2. 1971 through 1990 is a 3. And everything else, we'll give it a 4. So that'll be 1991 plus. Okay, that's going to be my last recode. So I will go and change that value. And if you notice, I did something not good, right? I said everything else is going to be a 4. But that's even counting the system missing. So I do not want to do that. Not a good thing. So I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to do it again. Do this again, except I'm not going to do else 4. Or I'm going to do else 4, but I'm going to say system missing can remain system missing. Does that work? No. Oh, there it did. System missing equals system missing. I'm not sure what is the holdup. And that should work this time. Say OK. Let's double check it to make sure. And it worked. OK, so you got to kind of make sure you don't make some errors, and that's why we do recoding a different variable. Because if I did the same, it's going to overwrite this, and you cannot fix it. So in some ways, it's much better to do recoding the different values. So that's recoding, changing the codes, which we're going to do this one last time. Anything that was a 1 was less than that, was whatever pre-1950. Anything that was a 2 was 1951 through 1970. Anything that was a 3 was 1971 through 1990. Anything that was a 4 is going to be 1991 plus, we'll say. All right, now if you want, you can kind of, you could do just a frequencies on these just to see what we're dealing with. Frequency on all these new recoded values. Let's check it out. So here's the frequency. Got my age breakdowns. Got my birthplace. You see 76% of the people in New York are native born, which makes sense. Got your education. 42% have some college education. Year of immigration. We have 25%, what do we got here? 14% of the people have come after 1991, which if you look at the valid percent, that doesn't count system missing. 60% have come after 1991 or born after 1991. And this is just kind of basic frequency, so that could be useful, but I'm going to show you how you can make a really useful table like I discussed in lecture. So it's under Analyze. Make sure we've got what we need here. Analyze, tables, custom tables. Okay, this is where we kind of set up how our output's going to be. So we only have 1 year, so that's fine. We all know it's 2014. We have one state, we know it's New York. Maybe you want to compare the native born versus the foreign born population. So what I could do for that is I could put in birthplace on the top and start putting other variables on the side. You want to put this down low like that? Or, well, we already did native born, foreign born, so we don't need that. Education, age. Now in this case, age needs to be nominal, looked at as numeric. Right now it's looked at as, or nominal like categories instead of strictly numbers. So to do that, to make sure I can do that, I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to go back for age. I'm going to make sure it's going to be nominal, because that's the one, if you remember, we recoded as same variable. So I'll try this again. Go to tables, custom tables. Have my birthplace up here. Your age, education. Sorry, I recoded age. I didn't even need to do that for age. Going a little crazy here. Immigration, year of immigration. And maybe I do have income here. That's the only other variable that I haven't really played with, is the income, except, recoding those 7s out of the way. So I could put household income up here for comparison purposes. So it's going to look at the income levels, comparing income levels for native born, foreign born by these variables. So at this point I can look at my summary statistics, because I don't just want the median income. I just want to know how many people, maybe there's statistics. So I'm going to count how many people are in all these categories, and I want to look for column percentages so I can compare the column percentages like I did with the frequencies. So apply to selection, and that's what it's going to give me. I'm just going to move down mean to the bottom. Now if I run this, it'll give me what I'm looking for. This is kind of what I want you guys to do, in order to do it. There we go. So it's showing me some very useful information. showing me the age groups, how many are native born versus foreign born. So for people 0 to 18, there's about 4 million people that are native born. There's about 310,000 that are foreign born of that age group in New York State. And you can see the column percentages. These will add up for age. These 5 variables, these are going to add up to 100%. The first 5 will add up to 100%. So you can see for the foreign born people, most people that are foreign born are between the ages of 45 and 64. Look at the education levels. Some college is pretty even across the groups. Immigration. Most native born people have been here or came, 1970 and between 51 and 70. Most of the foreign born people have come more recently, after 1991. And you can look at the incomes. Does it make sense for the incomes? For less than high school education, for native born people, they make about $92,000. That's pretty good. High school grad, $72,000, but if you have a college education, about $125,000. So it kind of makes sense, I guess, except maybe if you don't have a high school education, you make less money than people that don't have a high school education. But for the foreign born, this does make sense. $65,000 with no high school, 73, 114. And actually, this mean probably isn't as good. It is an average, but if you look at the median, sometimes it gives you a better number. So I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to run this again. Where is it? Analyze tables, custom tables. And instead of mean, I want to use median. I think it's going to give you a more accurate reading, because median, it takes the actual middle value. If you put all the values in a row, it's going to take the middle value. So if you have 50 values, it'll take 26th value as being the median, and sometimes it's more representative. And because some incomes in like New York City could kind of skew the whole rest of the state. So once I did that, it does look a little more reasonable here. To an extent, not huge, but the median incomes aren't over 100,000 anymore. It's a little better. So yeah, this is what I have here. This is kind of like the type of table I want you guys to do. If you want, you could compare race instead of native born, foreign born. You compare years instead of native born, foreign born. So the key is to recode, change the values so you can get some meaningful numbers, and then run this type of analysis, comparing income across variable groupings. And when you're done, you can simply click on the table, do a Control-C or a copy. You can open up Excel and simply copy the table into Excel and start using the formatting tools to make it look nice. There's an example in your lab of how like a nicely formatted table would look. Put number or dollar signs for the incomes, thousand separators for the numbers, change this into a more meaningful variable name. So there's lots of formatting you can do. Check out the table there. This is the first year I've done a demo on this type of thing, so I hope it would help. So as you're going along, kind of maybe look at the video, pause it to see what I did, so it can help you along. So hope this helps, and good luck with PUMS. It's definitely super useful. It's just a little bit difficult to use if it's your first time. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.